Hey, how's it going? This is Justin with Lesser Dog Tutorials, and this is episode 7 in the Elden Ring Soulslike tutorial series for Unreal Engine 5. So I apologize for the delay between videos, but a lot of things are happening behind the scenes, and I'm going to try my best to get to these when I can. So for this video, it's relatively simple. It's just going to be the attack. So what we'll be doing is adding a simple attack that we can use to develop some other stuff in the game, but we will revisit abilities after this because I want to add kind of a chain of attacks and then also have special abilities and things for weapons. But as of right now, I just want to do one more ability for the attack, and then we can kind of start working on the UI and having stamina and affecting the health of other enemies and things like that. So let's just get this attack going. It's going to be relatively simple. What I want to do is head over to the abilities folder and just copy the role. So I'm just going to duplicate the role, and I'll just say GA underscore great sword underscore attack underscore 01. And so now I've created this new ability, but it should have everything that the role has. So we'll just kind of change some things around so that it works for the actual attack. So to start things off, we don't need to apply an effect, so we'll just delete this effect here, and we'll connect it back up to the montage because we do want to play the montage. For the class defaults, we want to change it from player.action.role, and I think I'm just going to say character. This might change, but character.attack, I guess, will be fine for now. For the blocked tags, if you're rolling, we want to block this, sure. If we're airborne, we want to block it for now. There will be a time we want to do an attack when you're in the air. Otherwise, I think that'll be good, I suppose, for now. We'll just have to test it out. We can compile and save. Now let's swap out the montage. So that's relatively simple. We want to take our greatsword attack animation and we'll just create a montage, and we'll do the same naming convention. We'll just say MONT at the beginning, and then at the end we'll get rid of that montage word. And then in here, we'll come back to this later, but in the attack here we can switch that over to the attack montage. Okay, so with that done, we can trigger this ability. So we need character.attack. So if we head over to the third person blueprint, then we can kind of do what we did with the role. So actually I'll just copy these two things and move them up here. And we'll do triggered for now. And then if I promote that gameplay tag container to a variable, we'll just say attack tag container, compile, save, and we want it to be character.attack. Now we'll need to add the ability. So default abilities, we'll add one more and we'll say attack, greatsword attack. And then we'll test it out, see what happens. Okay, so yeah, it's attacking. It's just that we can keep doing the attack. So in order to stop the ability from firing multiple times, we can grant the player a tag, just like we did with rolling, where we granted a tag through a gameplay effect, which was is rolling. So instead of using an effect, we can actually just have the ability itself give that tag by saying in the, where is it? Activation owned tags, meaning tags to apply to activating the owner while this ability is active. We can just say that for instance, character.attack is the owned tag. So not only does it fire it, but it also grants us this tag. And then we can say that it's blocked if that's active. So that should do essentially what we did with the role. It's just we're not applying a gameplay effect. So let's test it out and see if that does actually work. I'm attacking. Now if I do multiples, you can see it's just swinging one after another instead of interrupting. And I can't do it when I jump. Can't do it when I'm rolling. And it is working. So that's very simple to add, and the attack is now implemented. But why don't we go ahead and see if we can't just quickly add in another character and have the attack affect that character's health. So in order to get an enemy to be hit, we first need an enemy. So in the third-person blueprints folder where the rune character blueprint is, which our third-person character is based on, let's go ahead and right-click it and create a child blueprint class. And we'll call it BP _ rune enemy. So just the base level enemy. And if we open the rune enemy and head over to the viewport, you can see there's no character in there. So what we want to do is select the mesh. And then over here in the skeletal mesh, we'll just select, if you scroll down, we'll select SKM Manny. And then for the anim class right above it, we'll select ABP Manny also. And then we need to move the character down. So we can kind of copy what's happening over in the third person character. So it looks like rotation is 270 on the Z, and then location is -90 on the Z. So if that's the case, we can do -90, 270, and then the capsule component is set to 90 and 35, and in the rune enemy, we'll do 90 and 35. Okay, so we'll compile and save that, and then we can drag the rune enemy into the game. And so now the character should be there, and if we play, we can see the character run into them, and they are just existing, which is good. So in order for us to do damage to a player when we attack, we need to look at the animations. And if we look at the Great Sword attack montage, we need a notify to be applied right when the swing occurs. So it'd be nice to add a notify right here, but we don't have one to add. So let's just create that notify real quick. So I'm just going to put it in the abilities folder here. So I'm just going to right click, go to blueprint class, and search for anim notify. I'll just create a base anim notify, and I'll say an great sword hit. And then opening that up, we should be able to override a function for receive notify. And at the end here, I'm going to hit that checkbox to say that it succeeded. And then I'll figure out what I need to do here. So if you drag out from mesh comp, we can get the owner. And then from get owner, we'll cast to, and we'll cast to our third person character. So this is going to be a player specific notify. And then on the third player or third person character blueprint, we need an event to run to handle this kind of data that we're going to be passing through. So in the third person character over in the event graph, I'm just going to create a custom event here. And I'm going to call it handle melee, and compile and save back over in the anim notify. That's exactly what we'll do. We'll handle melee, and then we will return. And that's all we're going to do for the notify. It just says, run this event. So back over in the Greatsword attack montage, we will add that notify, maybe right here. And then we'll just find Greatsword hit, and we'll save that. And then in the melee, we can just say print string swing. And this way it'll just show us that it's working. So let's give it a go. It's saying swing each time I swing, so that's working well. So how do we translate it to actually affect this enemy here? Well, if we head back over to the third person character, we can fill out some information here. So if we delete the print string, what we want to try is sphere overlap actors. Now this is going to be, again, temporary. Once a better solution is discovered, or we get to that point, we can adapt it to what we need. But right now, functionality is key. We just want things to work. So now we have sphere overlap actors. Let's change the sphere radius to something big, like 40, or bigger than 0. And to get the sphere position, we can actually just get this mesh, and then from the mesh, we can get a socket location. And if you recall, the let's see if I'll open it up real quick. In the skeleton here, we have the sword on the right hand. So if we look for that right hand, you can see right hand socket. So if we do a sphere from this, ideally we would want it to be the sword, but this is, again, just temporary. We're just going to see if this works. So we'll take this right-hand socket, and I'm just going to copy the name if I can. All right, so right-hand socket, I copy the name, going back over to third person, and the socket name here, I will just paste right-hand socket. And then the return value will go to that sphere position. And now we have the sphere size, and we have where the sphere is located. And it's just going to check if there is a specific class in that sphere. So we could add our enemy. So BP root enemy, it's going to look for any enemy in this sphere. And all we need to do is first check, because it brings out an actor array. So we really just need one, or at least to see if there's at least one in there. So we'll do is valid index, and we'll branch. So it's checking the first entry in this array. Is it valid? If it is, then what we'll want to do is send a gameplay event to actor. And we can just create a tag where we'll say that this is maybe character dot damaged. We'll just say character dot damaged for now. And what we'll want to do is get the instigator. So if you drag out, if you get this get instigator node, we can then, for the return value, say that that's the actor that we're sending the event to. And then we're going to make gameplay event data, because we need to fill out the payload section. And so this data here will go into the payload. But what we need to do also is from the out actors, we can just say get a copy. And so we're getting the one at 0. And this will be the target. So if we drop this down, we can see there's a target section here. That's the target. And then additionally, this target data down here, if we drag out again, we can say ability target data from actor. And then that goes into the target data. And we can drop that down and not worry about the rest of it. So now we have kind of a situation that just basically passes in the tag character.damaged. So we'll just say that this is melee handling. Switch that to black, make it look nice. We'll just put this right up here. All right, so now that we have this kind of stuff working, we need to listen for this event on the actual ability itself. Hold on, there is an error. Object types must have an input. Okay, so if you hit right click this and you do make array, then we can drag that into object types and we'll choose pawn. So that's what we're looking for, is the pawn. So then we'll compile and save, and then that should work. So now we need to listen for this. So if we head over to the ability for the greatsword attack, we're going to do a wait. So the ending of the ability can stay right here. I'm just going to move it down. But right after this, we're going to wait gameplay event. So now it's going to be waiting for an event, and the event tag is going to be the one we just created, character.damaged. And then we're going to say also only trigger once. So for the task, we want to create that variable out of this, and we'll just promote it to a variable. We'll call it wait task. Nothing complicated. And then for the payload, we're going to drag out and say break, because what we want to do is apply gameplay effect to target. And so the target data right down here at the bottom, we want to pass into the target data, and we'll close that again. And we essentially are just wanting to apply a gameplay effect to the character that we hit. While it waits, it says, you know, did we hit anyone? If we did, apply damage. Otherwise, it's just going to end the ability. And then at the end of the ability, we can cancel this wait task. So we can drag that wait task in, check if it's valid. And then if it is, we will end the task. So if it is valid, end the task. It's a little bit of cleanup. So the only thing we need to really do now is create that damage. So back in the abilities folder, let's just create a new blueprint class, which will be a gameplay effect. And we'll say GE underscore greatsword damage. And before we really mess with that, we can go back over to the gameplay ability, and we'll just say greatsword damage is the effect class that we want to apply. So now that that is done, we can head back over to the damage and essentially just say how much damage this is. So here at the top, modifiers, we just add one, and then we choose health. And then for the magnitude, we'll just do -20. So it's adding -20. And you can compile and save. So we have the ability working. So if you were to hit the character, you would see no indication that that actually is doing anything. So there are a few things we need to accomplish in order to get this to show us that this is actually affecting the enemy's health. So the first thing I want to do is on the enemy, I'm just going to clear this event graph out, and I'm going to create a custom event. And it's just going to be called show health. And what I want to do is print string the health. So if I just add that print string, then I can bring in the ability system component, get float attribute from ability system. The return value will be the string that I print, and the attribute is going to be the health. So then over in the third person character, once the melee handling has detected an enemy, and that's when I send the gameplay event to the actor, what I'm going to do is show the health of the enemy. So if I take the out actors right here, get 0, I'm just going to drag this over here, cast to the enemy, just plop this right at the end here, and then run the show health function. So now when I swing, it should show the enemy's health. So I'm facing the enemy. If you see that I swing, nothing's printing. But if I get right up next to this enemy and I swing, you'll see that it says 0. So it is actually working in terms of showing the information. However, his health hasn't actually been set. So in order for it to deduct 20 health, we need to give the character more than 0 health. So in order to do that, we'll just create a blueprint class, and we're going to add in the gameplay effect. We'll just select the gameplay effect, and we'll call it GE_enemy stats. And so what enemy stats is going to do is give the initial values that we need. But since health really is the only one that's important for now, I'm just going to select health, and then I'm going to say that it is 100. So this effect, once applied, will give 100 health. So if I go over to the enemy, and then I go to class defaults, you can see the default attribute effect. I'm going to choose enemy stats, and now he's going to be given 100 health at the beginning. So if I were to play and hit him with the sword, it should say 80. Okay, so it says 100, and it still says 100. So let's figure out why that's not going down. So after a bit of searching around, I finally opened up the C++ files, and in the rune retriever character.cpp, there's a function that is getting the ability system right here. And when I did it before, I never changed the null pointer to be ability system component. And this is important because whenever it's trying to get the ability system, it shouldn't be returning null, it should be returning exactly what we're looking for. So make sure you change that, save all, and if you launch Unreal, we can give it a test again. So with the game open again, we can test this out. And I'll just run up to the enemy here and take a swing. And now his health is at 80 instead of 100, 60 instead of 80, and so forth. So damage is now working. And we, I guess, could just kind of polish this up and add a little bit of a reaction so that we know that it's occurring. So in order for the character or the enemy to react to damage, what we're going to do is add something called the gameplay queue. So we go to tools, and down here you'll see gameplay queue editor, and it will just add a new gameplay queue. And the tag needs to start with gameplay queue, and then we'll just do gameplay queue dot took damage, and we can just add a new tag, and there it is. And so down here in the handlers, you can hit add new, and this window will pop up. So it can either be a non-instantiated U object, or it can be an instantiated actor that gets spawned in the world. We're going to choose the first one, where it's a non-instantiated U object. And so now it's been created. It's called GC_took damage, and that works for me. I'm going to close this window, and then I'm going to open that up. So in here, all that's really going to happen is that we're going to override the onExecute function. We can actually remove this parent one, and we'll just click that tick box here to say that it succeeded. And what we'll want to do is, from my target, we'll cast to BP rune character, so the base class that the enemy and the player are derived from. And then what we want to do next is play an anim montage. We can hook this up to the return node real quick, but the montage that we want to play is something that shows that they took damage, and we don't really have an animation that does that, but we do have an animation that can fill that gap for now. And in the animations in the Manny folder, we have this land animation where they just kind of bounce a little bit. And I think that will work for what we're doing. So if you just right click, go to create, and a montage, we can just go back to our naming convention, mont underscore, and then I'm going to call it take damage. So then we have this. I'm going to move it over to our animations folder because it's our own. And then back in the took damage gameplay queue, I'm just going to select that. So take damage. Cool. So now we have it, but we need to fire it. So in the Rune Retriever, Blueprints, Abilities, we need to open the damage. So we're going to look for the Greatsword damage. And then if you scroll down, I'm going to open the full blueprint editor, and I'm going to scroll down here, and I'm going to look for gameplay cues. You see it under display here, and I'm going to add an element to this. And then if you hit that drop down, we can say, let's see, we'll leave all that the same, and we'll just add the cue tag, and we have that took damage right here. So we'll add that in there, and that should fire the gameplay cue sequence here that plays the montage, and this happens when Greatsword damage is applied. So it could happen to our player, but right now it's happening to this enemy when we hit it. So let's see what happens if we hit the enemy. Well, we gotta actually hit him first, so there you go. Now he kind of reacted, so it's like he's getting hit. And this is kind of just the basis for how we're going to be attacking enemies. Everything's working well, and I think that's going to do it for this episode. That is adding a very basic attack and having an enemy react to it, both health and physically. So next, I think we're going to move away from abilities, and I'm not entirely sure what the next video will be. It could be UI stuff, which maybe is probably what I'm going to do. So either way, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please hit like, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.